Play at Novibet.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Irish Angle on Jump To It, sponsored by Novibet. As usual, I have Emma Nagle and Johnny Ward here, and we're going to have a look back at all the things that happened in Irish racing, particularly over the last week. Johnny, Emma, welcome to the show.
How's it going, Lee?
Thanks, Vincent.
Oh, good. Now, first off, Emma, you were down in Listowel for a couple of days. How did that go? Big crowds over the week. I see 92,000 in total, 28,000 on the Friday for Ladies' Day. Big numbers.
Yeah, it was massive. I was down on Wednesday. Weather and all was grand, but like the crowds were it's kind of hard to believe the crowds they draw down there when you consider I think we've been talking a lot about the crowds that come to maybe the Derby and stuff like that. So like to have 25,000 down in the stall on a Wednesday afternoon, considering the ploughing was on as well, like I thought it was massive. Great racing down there as well. In fairness, I think people kind of really got behind it. I was there Kerry National Day, thought their winner, that was very impressive. And yeah, no, it was just a kind of a great day overall. The crowd seemed happy, and I'm sure Pat Healy was very happy with it as well.
Yeah, and reserve winning the big race, that's always never a good look, but it was all innocent this time. We've had previous ones in Galway where a stable has taken out one runner to get a reserve in and that sort of stuff down the years, but this time it was benign, and it was a hell of a winner. Desert Moor House, 25-1 into 11-1. Martin Brazel, what you make of that, Johnny?
Yeah, he's just had an incredible year, Martin, and I suppose when your luck's in. You know, the non-runners, Real Steel, Tully Bay, Ash Tree Meadow, Toss Again. So 2 Gordon Elliott horses taken out, and we'll talk about the controversy that followed that. I fancied Salvador Ziggy. I think I put him up here, as did Emma last week, and I think turned into straight. You're thinking you're on a winner, but Martin Brassel's had an incredible season, and this horse, you know, I've sort of half looking at his form throughout the summer, winning around the likes of Kilbeggan and that, and it was hard to see. It's hard to see him going on to win this, but it just shows how good Martin is as a trainer. And it's funny, if he had better horses, you'd wonder how good he could be as a trainer. I know he's kind of a quiet man; he doesn't go courting owners and all that, but it's good to see a smaller trainer win a race like this. For all that, I think Gordon Elliott kind of almost. He took the main narrative out of the race itself by the controversy over trying to change Brian Hayes with Danny Gilligan. But I guess we'll talk about that as well.
Yeah, what do we talk about it now? Sure, there you go. So Gordon went on TV before the big race to say that obviously Ash Tree Meadow was out, which Danny Gilligan was going to ride the top weight. So he wanted to switch him to one of his other runners. He still had, 5 left in it, I think, when he took 2 out. And he wanted to put him on Gebre, one of the lower weights, which Brian Hayes has been declared for. But according to Gordon, anyway, Brian Hayes didn't want to move. He wanted to stay on the horse. So that was it. And he was on about the fact that he hoped that if Gebre was beaten that he wasn't going to be beaten a couple of lengths, because that would have meant that Danny Gilligan might have won them, claiming his £5. Emma, what did you make of that? First of all, he probably couldn't have switched anyway, is the bottom line, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure completely, but I'm pretty sure that something similar happened with Willie Mullins a couple of months ago when he wanted to switch. I think Paul couldn't ride the horse and he wanted to put Kieran Callaghan on. But I think the IHRB, you have to make a like-for-like swap. You can't put a claimer up for a full professional, and you can't do it the other way around either. So whether or not he would have been allowed to make the switch in the first place is debatable as well. But yeah, I thought it was probably not the best look to kind of be airing that publicly, especially I think it would have been hard to expect Brian to get off the horse in the Kerry National in the first place, but he was after driving all the way down to Listowel for one ride, a horse he had ridden in the Irish National to finish second. It was very unlikely he was going to get off the horse in the first time anyway. I think in the end it didn't make a whole pile of difference. He was well beaten, but yeah, it was not great viewing. I don't think. I don't know. I don't think Brian has ever ridden a winner for Gordon, and I don't know how the partnership will go now in the future. But I don't think you can blame Brian for not getting off the horse. You know, he went down there to ride it. He had a relationship with the horse in the past as well. So yeah, I don't think it was probably the best interview to give. Maybe it was a heat of the moment kind of thing.
Yeah, the other thing for Gordon is he was looking to put Danny Gilligan on Gebre. He should have put him on your horse, Salvador Ziggy. He might have won, would he? £5 off. He's only beaten 3 3/4 lengths. So in theory, he would have won the race. Johnny?
Yeah, I suppose Jack has gotten on well with that horse, but it was a funny one that 2 Elliott horses were taken out, and then he's beaten by a reserve. I spoke to a few people about this, and it was just I suppose a bit of a contradiction here in that as a journalist, you want trainers to open up to you and to be very forthright. And I think Gordon is certainly that in interviews. I think he wears his heart on his sleeve. But I did find this a bit strange because I think Brian Hayes had 3 rides in the entirety of the Listowel Festival, and to go down to ride a horse that had like roughly a 6 or 7 to 1 chance in the race to win a 200 grand race for Brian is obviously a big opportunity. Now, as Emma said, like they don't have a massive relationship going backwards, Gordon and Brian. But I suppose if you were in Brian's situation, I can see where he's coming from. I mean, he was jocked up on a horse that had a very good chance. He's down there. He's prepared for the race. And then, as Emma says, you shouldn't be able to replace. I mean, if I've laid a horse that Brian Hayes is riding and then it's replaced by one of the best 5 pound claimers around, they're probably not that happy with it because it's a big 5 pound difference in terms of a jockey and a very good kind of conditional jockey. But I think maybe Gordon should have. I don't know the context or how it came up with Gary O'Brien. I mean, it looked like they kind of. I don't know if Gary knew going into the interview that Gordon was going to say that, so it made for good TV. But I did feel some sympathy for Brian, I have to say.
Yeah, I'd agree. Anyway, other things down there. Another big thing was obviously Oisin Murphy going there on the Tuesday, was it? He rode Dragon and Malta to win, first winner for the Kerry jockey at his local track, or one of his local tracks. Emmett, they didn't seem to get a huge crowd as far as I know on Tuesday, but at the same time, it was still a big draw, isn't it? Oisin Murphy riding down in Listowel.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the figures were on Tuesday now, but it was definitely kind of a big deal to get him down there, I suppose, even just for people watching on the telly. It added a lot of excitement for me watching it at home, even like you're kind of waiting to see, is he going to get the winner? And he had some, some great finishes, and he got up in a photo in the end. And I think it meant an awful lot to Oisin as well, because I don't think he'd ever even ridden in Kerry, never mind rode a winner down there. So he's local to the track, and the owners and everything got a great celebration out of it. I think he was saying he was meeting people from Kerry who he hadn't met since he was a child, basically. So yeah, I think it was good. I think the crowd just over the week kind of proved the point that they didn't need to pay Frankie the big money to go down there. I think they had 92,000 over the full week, so great week for them in total. And yeah, I think getting Oisin was a good choice in the end.
Yeah. One other thing now, Johnny, is bookies. They had a bonanza down there generally. There was, I think, 8 odds-on shots beaten over the week. One in particular, a few people were on to me about it, and I really can't work it out, is on Wednesday's bumper. This is the one where Emma's dad's horse finished second. There was a favourite in that called Trotitude Tara, 1 to 3 all day, and then it drifts out to 8 to 11 before the off. Some people were telling me that they were only going around on the first circuit. It was out to 2 to 1 and running on Betfair. It got beaten 51 lengths. And then the stewards go and have a word with Willie Mullins about it afterwards, or check the horse. And it was post-race normal. There seems to be a constant thing here with these horses that they end up, they can't find nothing wrong with them on the day. Whether there is subsequently or not, I don't know. But we've had loads of high-profile ones over the last year, maybe even longer, where a horse runs poorly and they do a test on it, the vets at the races. They never seem to find anything wrong with them, generally. So you'd wonder, this horse, like she'd finished second on debut at Wexford a month earlier, similar ground, slightly longer trip the following day, but like it's hard to stomach those ones, isn't it? From a punting point of view, when you see something drift that badly and run so terribly, how can it run that badly?
Yeah, like in fairness to the stewards, you've referenced it in your blog today as well about the sampling horses that disappoint, or various horses at the racetrack, and that's for I suppose that's for another day. But Willie had a couple of bumper horses that were weak in the betting. To be quite honest, I was very keen to take this horse on because I thought, as much as the form in theory from her win previously had worked out well with the third horse who's trained by Barry Conlon win, I didn't think she was anywhere near to be entitled to be the price that she was. That doesn't mean that she should have been beaten, 150 lengths or whatever. So they did look into it. But what could you say? I mean, I don't think the horse deserved to be that short of a price, but they looked into it. The horse disappointed, and sometimes Willie's horses will drift and be beaten. There was another horse I mentioned, the Mount Nelson horse later on, who was very weak in the betting, ran better, but was beaten. But yeah, it's obviously very disappointing when you see this. But at the same time, I guess the stewards did look into it.
Yeah, no, they did. But as I say, they found nothing again, which is just, you're there scratching your head, aren't you? The next day you've won again. It looks a winner. Like, look, admittedly, I didn't think she'd win that day either, I have to say, because when she ran in Wexford on softened ground again, it was rain softened that day in Wexford. Patrick rode her on the wide outside the whole way around. He was looking for a bit of better ground, and while she did finish second, it was probably a weak enough race, admittedly the third one since, but she was stepping up in trip on soft ground again. Didn't look the ideal preparation for me or the ideal scenario for her. But having said that, you couldn't have dreamed that she'd be beaten as far as she was. Emma, your dad's horse ran a cracker. She'll be a day in that, will there?
Yeah, he ran a lovely race now, in fairness. Probably just about fit enough to even run, so we were very happy with the way he ran. Might go out again now on Thursdays if he's in pretty good form after it, and I don't think there's a race for a long time. So he's a 6-year-old now, so the fast turnaround shouldn't do him any harm. And yeah, he'll have a right crack at it Thursday, I'd say, if he shows up.
And is that a bumper again, or are you going back
a bumper again? Yeah,
bumper again
doesn't look the strongest race now, in fairness, and there's plenty of rain coming, which will suit him. He'll be a bit sharper out for that one, so he should take a bit of eating, hopefully.
Excellent. All right. Well, look, we'll move on. Curragh the weekend. There were some big things to talk about there. The first one is that Goff's Million that was run on Saturday. What a winner we got there. One look, Paddy Toomey, first time out. Didn't miss that one either. 12-1 into 5-1. A 6-length demolition of a fairly decent field here now. The runner-up is rated 101, so of Aidan O'Brien. So you're talking about a serious level of performance here. They bought this 2-year-old for 65 grand, and they won 616,000 on the first day. Some performance, Johnny.
Totally extraordinary, to lay out a horse for this race that didn't have a run to win over 600 grand. And you say, Vinny, the Cherry Blossom rated 101 in second. My mate Alfie rated 96, and 96 Storm Miami in fourth. So it's basically impossible to knock the form. And a horse by Gleneagles, Gleneagles a decent stallion, but Gleneagles has gotten very, very few stars, if any really at all. Has had the odd quite good horse. But to have a horse by Gleneagles, first time out running to what must have been about 110, 115 really, was absolutely extraordinary. As you say, well backed, 8s into 5s. In terms of the on-course betting, and basically tracked the favourite throughout, travelling well, bolted up. And if you're to believe this performance, and I've no reason not to, this is a serious Guineas prospect next year, because to do that first time out would suggest this horse should be rated at least 120 going forward.
Yeah, Emma, you were very impressed too, were you? Saw you sharing it on social media. It really was a hell of a performance.
Yeah, no, it was massive, and just the confidence of Paddy Toomey to run her. I think he said after the race that she was entered in a maiden today, but he said he'd throw her into the million instead, and it paid off massively. I mean, to get that prize money, but to even run to that level first time out, and the way Billy rode her as well, he took his time, and she just travelled through the field so easily and just took off from them. Like I try not to get maybe carried away too much with a 2-year-old, but if she can go forward with any kind of natural improvement, like, she could be something very, very special next year, probably as taking a debut, as you'll see, really.
And what about this? The prize money in that 1.2 million in total in prize money for that Goff's Million. But you had a horse, Colt finished 10th in it, called Beauty Thunder. It had won Ger Lyons trains it. It had won the previous day in Roscommon and won 9 grand. It goes and finishes 10th in a race there and wins 12,320. It's madness, is it? I don't know. Like, where do you put it into the whole structure of racing? And we talk about prize money in general. Should these races be there, Johnny? Does it make any difference?
Well, it's obviously a sales incentive from Goff. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily have an issue with it. I mean, I'm sure the horse that was bought, is it Guildenstern, from having chased home Diego Velasquez, switched to Aidan O'Brien. I'm sure this horse was bought with a view to having a potential to win plenty of prizes in this race. Another horse that was very, very weak in the betting and was very disappointing. But I don't have a major problem with it. And to be fair to Paddy Toomey, in terms of putting him on the map, not that he needs to know, this is huge publicity, I think, for him in racing. But I guess it's something a little bit different. But maybe we can look at the handicap, that the big price for the handicap on the Sunday, and you compare that to the ledger, and I guess we do have to look at the program going forward.
Yeah, well, let's look at that. The big race on Sunday, which was Magellan Spirit winning the Cesaro, which at 150-1, which is some price, isn't it? Biggest price Curragh winner, I'd say. I can't remember one being bigger than that in the Curragh. Anyway, Emma, what did you make of that?
Yeah, I was fairly sick, actually. I'd backed On Rising. I thought he was up for a few strides, but then Dermot Wells' horse came, and then this 150-1 shot came out of nowhere. look, I don't think many people would have backed him anyway. That's for sure. It's actually an interesting. I think Brendan Powell shared a clip after the horse won a few months ago, saying that he could have been a Cesarewitch horse in the future. So that was a long shot call by him, but very inconsistent horse. Kind of, you wouldn't pick him on form anyway. But yeah, it was dramatic. You'd be happy for the jockey. I think he's only had 6 winners this year, so it's one he's going to remember definitely. But no, I was a bit sick now afterwards. I thought Down Rising was coming with the winning run. I think JP arrived in the helicopter beforehand, so I was hoping it was for him. It probably was in the end, but didn't work out too well for me now.
I'd say JP might have been there for the charity race at the end of the day. Anyway, going back to that Magellan Spirit, an interesting thing here is obviously 150 to 1 chance pops up. It was beaten 53 lengths the previous day it had run, so the stewards asked the trainer about the improvement in form. And what I thought was interesting here, and look, I know the trainers are put in the spot with this, how did your horse improve? I have no idea, but I have to give you some excuse or something. And Joseph said he doesn't like being crowded in his races, and a wide draw and a good start contributed to his improvement in form. So the stewards just noted that. They can't do anything else anyway. But what's interesting is the previous day that horse ran in the amateur race in Galway, which was over the exact same distance, an extended 2 miles or 2.5 miles, a furlong, on soft ground. It was also drawn wide, and it disputed the lead. So it got a good start that day and was from a wide draw, and yet it was beaten 53 lengths. So it's very hard to say that those two factors influenced the performance. I have no idea how it ran as well as it did, because it certainly wasn't in the form book for me. Johnny, what about the rest of the day there in the Curragh? What did you make of that overall?
Yeah, well, I'd just like to give a mention to the charity race, because it's only just ahead of Irish Champions weekend, and it was a nice thing to happen as well. I myself, Mark Bird, Shane Foley, and Mark Boylan, we all were asked by Martina Dempsey to help her raise a few quid for her charity going into the Irish Ninja Jockeys, got into the Corinthian Challenge Series. So there were a few people there in the night, did a bit of raffling and all that, and made a few quid. And lo and behold, Martina, who would have given Fair Damsel plenty of mention on the night as well, saying that the horse was going to appreciate stepping up to 1.5 miles after the run at Naas. Julie wins in somewhat controversial circumstances, but absolutely delighted for Martina. She was very thankful to Dick Brabazon for giving her the opportunity with this. And these races are good as well. I know you wrote your blog about the nature of them, but they bring people to the races. It's great to see people getting their chance well and raise money for charity.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Absolutely. I'm fully in favour of them, but I have an issue with the fact that from a punter's point of view, those punters who are not fully informed on what's really going on behind the scenes here, they end up with a sour taste in their mouth after this particular race, because the guy who was riding the favourite, a guy called Damien Moore, he had won the first leg of this 3-leg Corinthian Challenge on Noble Anthem, a horse of Adrian Keatley's coming over from England, won the race in Naas. He rides it. It's a short enough price favourite, went off 13-8 favourite. He was home and hosed, basically, with a furlong to run. It was all over. He was cruising in front, and then he eased the horse down. Now, I don't know why. I presume he misjudged the winning post, or he was knackered, or whatever happened to him. I don't know, but he goes anyway, eases down, and gets beaten in the end. And there's nothing. There's no steward's report on it. There's no sanction to him. There's nothing for a punter to say, God, at least the authorities went and did something afterwards when that happened. But like, if that was a professional rider doing that, he'd have got 24, 28 days, maybe longer. It's hard to know what he would have got, but there'd been proper outrage if it happened in a professional rider's race. I understand he's an inexperienced amateur. He's not even an amateur. He's just riding in a Corinthian Challenge. What did you make of it, Emma?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's unfortunate, and I get the point from a punter's perspective, I suppose. Like, it looks terrible. He was the favourite, and it just didn't look great. I saw he actually had a Facebook post up, the jockey, afterwards, saying, look, he made the mistake. He put his hands up and he was minding the horse on the ground, I think is what he was saying. But I think when companies are offering betting on these races, it has to come with a bit of a health warning, really, because as you mentioned, these aren't the vast majority of them aren't really jockeys. I think amateur jockeys are allowed to ride if they haven't ridden under 5 winners or so, but I think the vast majority will probably never ride a race again after they finish the 3 races in the Corinthian Challenge. So like, they're not there's not really going to be any sanctions on them for doing something like this, because what are they really going to do in the end? They're doing this for a charity, and there was an awful lot of outrage on social media now about it. And it's kind of, you can see where people are coming from in some way, but I think you have to understand the reason behind these races, and it's all for charity and that and whatever. But yeah, I think there has to be a warning with the betting. Even maybe just only offer on course betting might be a solution to it. Don't have any betting online or in betting shops. It's probably nice to have betting on it just for, I suppose, a novel bit. Like you mentioned there, Martina was tipping up her own horse. It's nice for her to be able to tip the horse to people, and they kind of get a bit of a buzz about backing her riding a winner. But for the kind of vast majority of punters who don't know what's going on in the race, I suppose it's probably a bit of a sting, right?
Yeah, like as I say, look, if they even had it that the stakes were limited on those races, you can have a max bet of a fiver each way or something. That's it. Across the bookmakers, because it just seems like you get someone there, someone goes and they back your Dawn Rising in the previous race in the Cesarewitch, and they're trying to get themselves out of a hole at the end of the day, and they go and have a big bet in the favourite in the last. It's a disaster, isn't it? And they get no comeback on it or anything else. But look, anyway, so for someone else to sort out, I suppose, in future. But I do think there's an issue around betting with those particular races. A couple of other things just to look at. One of them, big one, I suppose, from last week. Constitution Hill is going to stay over hurdles. Is that the right decision, Johnny?
Yeah, I'd probably make the same decision. I've felt all along that his stamina for the Gold Cup was very, very questionable. Just he's such a fast horse, and the Gold Cup being such a jumping test that wouldn't necessarily allow him many mistakes. And for me, it was a question of whether they'd go, for the champion chase route or stay hurdling. And to be honest, I can see why 100% why they did this. So the reaction in racing to me anyway was kind of very disappointed. It was like, well, this is going to be a boring few years here, because kind of if you've seen Constitution Hill win by 10 lengths once, you've probably seen him do it 100 times. But to be honest, I can completely see why they made the decision.
Yeah, I'd agree. Doesn't mean he won't go chasing at a later stage in his career either. But sure, why not just, he's only won one champion hurdle. Why not win a second or a third or whatever? What do you think, Emma?
Yeah, I think like it's a funny one, because I think if they never mentioned chasing, no one would have any opinions on it whatsoever. I don't think you'd ever consider even sending him chasing if maybe I think Michael Buckley was the one with the idea in the first place. But yeah, it's a tough one, I suppose. I was a bit disappointed, but that's just because it's kind of the opportunity of a 4-horse to do something very different. But like I said, like if Michael Buckley had never mentioned chasing, I wouldn't be rooting for him to go chasing either. Like Johnny mentioned, like stamina, very questionable. Like, was he going to go straight for a Gold Cup, or was he going to go for a novice chase at Cheltenham if he was going to go this year chasing? But yeah, look, it's probably the right decision, really, if you have your kind of sensible thinking cap on you. Like he has probably the opportunity, like he's only a 6-year-old, he's probably the opportunity to win as many champion hurdles as he likes, providing he stays sound. And there's still actually time to go chasing as well. He could win 3 champion hurdles and go chasing afterwards. He'll still be quite a young horse at that stage. So you can kind of see why people are a bit disappointed, but it was the right decision in the end. I was quite surprised actually about Willie keeping Imperi Pass over hurdles this year. That was a bit more of a shock to me, to be honest. Obviously he isn't deterred too much by Constitution. It's nice to see as well someone taking him on, and he didn't decide to send State Man chasing either. So he'll have a bit of competition this year, which is good to see.
Yeah, and other things then we're going to look at the fixture list. Horse Racing Ireland announced the 2024 fixture list. They've upped it by 5 fixtures from 390 to 395. They're talking about longer breaks at the end of seasons and keeping 6 free Sundays during the year. It's mainly National Hunt races or National Hunt fixtures are the extra ones in the list, and they're going to pop them in when there's congestion in the fixture list, I suppose, when there's a lot of horses wanting to run in the springtime or in the autumn or whatever. Johnny, what about this overall? Is the fixture list perfect enough that we just need 6 in and more or less leave everything as it is? I thought they would have done a bit more tweaking myself.
Yeah, I don't really have a strong view on it other than that I suppose the numbers of fixtures at the moment is really stark. Like when I got into racing, you know, or certainly around this time of year, you'd have racing on probably a Wednesday, a Thursday, and a Saturday and a Sunday maybe, and that'll be your lot. And now we've more than one fixture per day, and I just have some reservations about where they're going, even in not so much in terms of the fixture list itself, but just like, for example, I'm in Mallow on Tuesday, and the give or take the racing is going to take about 10 minutes in an 8 race card. I think 4 sprints and 4 mile races. the first race is 4 hours and 5 minutes before the last race, right? So they're basically telling people who are going racing, like, what are you doing here? Why would you spend over 4 hours at a race meeting? And it could be closer to 5 hours if you stayed first to last for 10 minutes of action. So I'd have, in the sense of the fixture list itself, I don't have a strong view on it, but I think this is happening too often now where, and I know the paymasters that are dictating to the race courses are not the paying customers, but we're getting to a dangerous situation now where there is no way in the world of God anyone should go to that meeting from start to finish at Mallow on tomorrow, because like, what are you going to be doing for the whole day? Like, and I know they'll say it's only an industry meeting, but like, it's really, like, for me, it's kind of a bit taking the piss for people who actually want to go racing, because they're basically saying the paying customer doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, you bring your knitting. That's the thing you do in
Yeah.
between races, or crochet. But the other thing here, just one little thing I noticed out of it is, because of the way they're looking at these longer breaks between the seasons, and that they're going to actually reduce the number of all-weather fixtures in Dundalk. And yet they're telling us in the industry that they need a second all-weather track, and yet they're reducing the number of all-weather meetings. It just doesn't seem to make sense. Does it? You think they'd be adding to them every year at this stage, run Dundalk to its maximum until the second track, if it ever gets opened down around Tipperary or whatever happens. What do you think of that, Emma?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know. I suppose, like, when you consider the nature of an all-weather track, they could probably race there every day of the week without having too much hassle. Whether a second one is needed, look, I suppose maybe to make it more accessible for people down the south of the country, but I suppose the amount of money that's going to go into it might be a little bit hard to justify, just because, they only race Dundalk once a week majority of the time. Why not just run 2 or 3 extra fixtures there every week instead of building a whole new track? I don't know. I'd be no expert on the subject now, to be honest, but I suppose there is I think you see a lot of talk from trainers that there is probably a lack of opportunities for horses in the lower grades. So maybe it would do no harm. Just the fixtures in total, I suppose there isn't a whole pile of difference to it. It's probably a good idea to keep the floating fixtures, though, because at certain times of the year there is kind of a congestion of entries and stuff like that. But not a whole pile of difference. But I think Ireland do things pretty well with the fixtures when you compare it to what's going on over in Britain. So I wouldn't have a very strong opinion, kind of similar to Johnny, I suppose.
Yeah, the last thing on that, just I'll say, is that obviously they've said the days these fixtures will be on, but they haven't given the times of the races. And we know that there's this new elite racing window on a Saturday afternoon in the UK that they're proposing for next year, where they'll keep it to 3 meetings during that hour, or hours between 2 and 5 in the afternoon. We don't know when the Irish ones will be on. Johnny, do you think they'll clash with those, or do you think they'll move some of them out of that elite window?
Yeah, I've no idea. We'll see how it works out as well. I suppose the main issue we have with the fixture list at the moment, Vinny, is people actually betting on racing, and that's going to become a serious problem. So they can kind of play around with things like this, and the Saturday. I'm not sure what to make of the Saturday idea, but like, if they have the problems and the reports that I'm getting for Britain of what's actually being wagered on racing at the moment is very, very worrying. So I don't know how stuff like this is kind of rearranging the deck chairs a bit.
Yeah, because football is taking over, isn't it? It's the number one sport in a big way for people, younger people, particularly betting. I think it's left to the likes of myself, who have just been betting on horses all our lives. But talking about horse racing, big one coming up soon as well is the Arc. 15 horses left in it this morning, and we're told that Continuous, Aidan O'Brien has said it'll be his only runner in the race, going to be supplemented on Wednesday for the race. We talked about this a bit last week, but Continuous is a big chance, Emma, has it?
Yeah, massive chance. We talked about him last week. I think I'm a fairly big fan of the horse, and it's probably not the strongest renewal of the Arc that you'll see. So I think if he shows up, he'll have a massive chance. Just the fact that I was supplementing him, I think he left Emily Dickinson in this morning, maybe just in case anything else happens in between. But just the fact that he's only going to run one in the race. When you look through the horses that are left in this morning, I think, if he shows up, he'll take a fair bit of beating.
Yeah, Johnny, would you agree?
Yeah, I should have backed this horse. I was putting it up at 12-1 when after the ledger, I felt that, and as I spoke, and I think I spoke on the podcast here, like, it completely makes sense from a pedigree perspective to go for the Arc. And now the fact that they don't even have anything else necessarily in the race, the I suppose the racing post thing about today, the predictability of this arc hanging in the balance. Weather is becoming harder to predict in general, but you'd hope for the kind of chance that this horse at the ground would come up on the easy side. But as I said, they have had a great year for stallion prospects, and if this fellow wins the arc, he's definitely a flat stallion prospect for all that he's won the Ledger. And just as Emma says, it just doesn't look the strongest renewal. And I think he's a reasonable chance for me. Even at his price, I still wouldn't put you off.
Yeah, good stuff. What is he now? About 8-1 or something?
Yeah, 7-1 now. Yeah,
7. There you go. Getting shorter. Could be shorter come Arc Sunday. And now, finally, have you as a horse for me to follow from the week? Something you think will win? I'm going to pick a very obvious one, which is One Look. I was most impressed. I think there's definitely going to be big days in that horse going forward. But outside of that, did either of you see anything that really tickled your fancy, Emma?
I'll give my dad's horse on Thursday. I think he'll take a fair bit of beating if he goes now. But he seems like he should be at the moment. But I don't know that I didn't really talk about him much. I was very impressed by the Kerry National winner as well, Desert Moorhouse. Just his profile. He's only run 4 times over fences. I know he's an 8-year-old, so maybe he had a few problems or something like that. But the way he won the race, like he won going away with any amount in hand, I think. So I think if he shows up for another big handicap chase, I don't think what he's been given has been released yet by the handicapper, but I think he should have plenty more in him. I think Ricky mentioned the Irish National or something down the line, but yeah, I'll be following him the next time he shows up as well, I think.
Okay, and just for those watching, Emma's dad's horse is called Noble Talent, and it runs on Thursday in the bumper. Johnny, have you one for us?
I was going to give a horse that's actually running today, but this might be a bit too late for Cavallo Pazzo of Joseph O'Brien's, who I backed last Monday and I thought was a bit unlucky. But Shrewsbury Road, who ran on the same card as your selection at the Curragh, just interesting to note that this horse was a relatively cheap yearling, so he's obviously by Sea the Stars. Maybe that's physically that they weren't particularly impressed with his yearling, but in any event, he was well backed at the Curragh in one of the later maidens. Travelled really well over 1.2 miles, and I think he's going to be a nice middle distance handicap for this horse going forward, stepping up to 1.5 miles maybe on better ground. I think he's a nice horse, and I know John Murphy George has been heavily involved in the operation in recent years. A good yard, and they do very well with what they have, and I think this horse is going to be decent.
Excellent. All right. Well, look, if you are having any bets, make sure you gamble responsibly and do subscribe to our channel, and hopefully be back next week. Well, I won't. I'm going away on holidays for a few weeks, but the other guys will be here and be here for the next 3 weeks before I return. So enjoy your racing and have fun, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.